In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents, I have a very interesting guest with me here today. I'm with John Kosturos, and he is heading up the Chief Revenue function at the RingLead. Obviously, you guys, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have been hearing in one way or the other about RingLead already. And they're coming in with, 1,000+ enterprise customers that have essentially are leveraging their platforms by automating their data management. And today we're going to dive in, what it actually means, how RingLead is helping their customers, what RingLead is all about, and how John is thinking about growth for the company. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Very cool. So maybe give us your own 360 overview. What is RingLead all about?
Well, RingLead is a data orchestration platform, which is a new emerging category, supporting both the sales operations, marketing operations, and revenue operations functions that are really the drivers of intelligent demand and digital transformation at the sales and marketing level. Mm-hmm. And we focus on helping companies to improve the quality of their data, improve the indexability of their data or the categorization, help them to build profiles and scoring, and then really ultimately help to automate the ingestion of new data into their system, which could couple very nicely with something that's helping them improve conversion right off the website by 1.5 times, because we can basically help to automatically route inbound ingestion directly to the right person or relationship owner, and even populate their calendar on a web form to automate the booking of meetings.
Very, very cool. That is a lot of data flowing to the right places there. Can you tell me a little bit about, who's leveraging the platform? It sounds like a, very robust and big platform. Maybe tell us a little bit about what type of companies are using it, and maybe a little bit more about the use cases.
Yeah, so, it's got a broad spectrum of features that can be purchased as point solutions. So if you ask me, what types of companies can use RingLead or do, there are all types of companies. Now, some of those verticals, first of all, are going to be more focused on business to business. They're going to have, maybe a high Alexa rank, meaning a lot of web traffic, or they're going to have a heavy presence at trade shows around the world, or large call centers. Maybe they're backed by PE firms and need to grow. And really what we see is high in-demand companies that experience a lot of traffic and data flow, as well as high growth and velocity companies that have to hit certain metrics to continue their trajectory into that unicorn status. So we do have both a presence in SMB, mid-market, and enterprise. We love working with technology companies, software companies, healthcare, finance, really across the spectrum, but we do have a few focuses.
Very cool. That definitely gives a little bit of an overview in which arena you guys are playing in. Who would typically, the person bringing RingLead on board? Is that a head of operations? Is that a marketer? Is that maybe even somebody in the tech department, where typically, who's raising the flag for RingLead?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple personas. There's definitely someone raising a flag, but that could be the operations professional, or it could be, the chief revenue or marketing officer when they are in the meeting and seeing conversion rates that are lofty that they don't believe, or metrics that should be are underwhelming or overwhelming and don't seem to be accurate. So the demand can come from sales, marketing, leadership, or the operations professionals who are doing time and tedious tasks like deduplicating their database, or standardizing a state value across the database. The typical people that are engaged early stages on evaluating our technology are, marketing operations, sales operations, revenue operations, Salesforce admins, Marketo admins, Eloqua, Pardot, HubSpot, the people that are behind the scenes doing the magic to support all of our sales and marketing efforts.
Very cool, very cool. That actually brings me a little bit, just sort of a small tangent there on your own role. You're like the Chief of Revenue and Product Officer listed at LinkedIn. Maybe tell us a little bit, because sort of the revenue functions are emerging and they take different shapes in different organizations. Maybe tell us a little bit about, what that entails within RingLead.
Yeah, so in RingLead, you've got, in most organizations, you've got sales and marketing, and those departments are typically need to have a leader to align them, and that also translates to product and other departments like support and onboarding. But at RingLead, I've been fortunate enough to be at the company for a very long time, serving in quite a few different roles, all the way from being an end user, producer, sales person, and managing all of the processes, right, from BDR to AE to renewing our own customers. And as we've scaled, had the luxury of meeting and training and working with a lot of really great salespeople and sales managers. And so that function typically oversees the full pipeline and number from different operations and sales, which could be net new or expansion on the existing book of business, and then into marketing functions, because our marketing departments, we have a high focus on account-based approach. We know who our ideal customers are. We know when they're in market, and we need to make sure that the offers and the events and the direct mail campaigns and all the the cool things that we're doing in marketing are very aligned with sales, from early stages of activation of a new prospect all the way out through the life cycle of that customer. And having those two teams play well together ultimately allows us to scale faster and to extract more, not just revenue, but positive experiences for the customers.
Very cool. You mentioned account-based marketing, and it has been obviously emerging more and more on the Pathmark Presents podcast. Like, I would be just very curious, what's your perspective on account-based marketing? Like, where do you see it developing towards, or what is something that you're excited about in account-based marketing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do have a sales and marketing background, and when I think about account-based marketing, it's one of those things that I've always been a true believer in. Even as an end sales user who had to make 150 calls a day back when the phone, it was really hot. We used to use it all the time, and I still do. But I would go into Yahoo Finance before there was LinkedIn, and I would identify companies that had a need for our product that I was selling, and could buy a lot of it and buy it fast. And and that was my approach, and that's why I've always been a sales top producer. Is there's some other characteristics that I've learned that help assist in that, but targeting the right list of companies. When you're selling to businesses, you need to sell to the businesses that can write a check and write it fast and get a lot of value from your solution. And so what I see that's exciting today is just the availability of information. We didn't have LinkedIn when we started. We had to ask for the person who managed the department. And now you're telling me I got LinkedIn, I can connect with anybody in the world I want. I can get their phone number from Zoom Info. I can get their emails. I can also categorize the businesses by technologies, technographics, budgets spent in different areas, or location, industry, employee size, how much capital they've raised, who their VCs are. You can just layer multiple data points into, let's say, a Snowflake environment, and start to really identify profiles that your sales team and your company should be built and surrounded to go after and assist and create value for. And if you can do that at scale, you start to see major increases in ACV, major reduction in the amount of time it takes to close a new customer. You'll start to see all sorts of metrics, like the cost of acquisition might go up a little bit, but you're going to see the ACV skyrocket, and some of the other characteristics like reducing the churn. So to me, that's everything when you're selling to B2B. You have to know what company you're going after, even before the people that you're going to target at those companies.
Very, very good. Super interesting. You mentioned obviously a little bit in the pre-chat as well. Like you mentioned, a couple of inbound channels that are very key for RingLead. Maybe could you tell me, because we speak a lot about the websites quite naturally on the Pathmark Presents podcast, what role do you attribute to the website at the moment for client acquisition?
It's got a heavy role, I think, but a website is really content, and so there's a lot of teams and people and processes and contributions that go into the success on the website, right? We've got an amazing blog, amazing writers. We've got an amazing help center that indexes thousands of pages. We've got an amazing video productions team. We've got 3 podcasts that are on our and actually video podcasts that are hosted on our site, and a ton of tremendous content there. Case studies, ebooks, we've got data sheets, we've got competitive analysis, and then we've got our product pages, our homepage, and we use a lot of SEO, organic as well as paid advertisement, and utilize all of that to drive traffic and ultimately scoring of individuals and accounts. So that we can prioritize follow-up. So whether, somebody's filling out a form or not, when you combine ABM or intent data with, some of the other scoring and that you can do on engagement on your website, and you can aggregate all that against an account, you can really see which accounts you believe are in market, and we're true believers in that. And so, the website's huge, but we also have a great set of partners that have exchanges like Salesforce App Exchange, Marketo Launchpoint. We're on the Oracle Eloqua, Cloud App Exchange. Going to be on the HubSpot App Exchange. And so these different directory sites, G2 Crowd, Capterra, Peer Insights, you could probably name off 5 or 6 other analyst sites that are very important, not just for the lead generation, but also for the reviews. So, the web is a huge part of our demand gen process and supports even every outbound activity that we're doing as well.
Very cool. You mentioned intent data there while you were speaking. What's your take on that? What's your experience? You mentioned a strong believer in that type of data. Maybe what is strategies or what's just your thinking about it at the moment?
Well, intent data is just, another layer of firmographics that help you to profile businesses and see, if there are 200,000 businesses in your market and you've got a 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 salespeople, there are a certain amount that you can handle. And so prioritization is important. And so, most of us are prioritizing on employee size and revenue and geography and industry. And then you start to get intelligent about it and find unique data attributes. Like if you're in healthcare, you can get hundreds of data values against, how large a hospital is, or who owns it, or how many hospital beds. If you're in higher education, there's data for that. If you're in finance, there's PitchBook and Preqin and Crunchbase and data for that. And so what I'm seeing is that if you can create profiles that are unique for who you want to target, and then you have a good idea of those businesses that you want to target, and some that may be on the fringe, now you start layering intent in there. Now, intent isn't very easy to pick up, actually, because you have to identify, they call it intent signals. Some call it, it's keyword phrases. But basically, you have to identify topics that you think show intent to purchase your product or service. And, maybe that, you can go through your taglines on your web pages. You can go through the keywords that you're targeting and some of the long tail stuff that you're targeting in SEO, and building that categorization into what they call clusters for intent can be probably the most time consuming activity. But an example for us, we break clusters into competitors. So if businesses are in market for our competitors, if businesses are in market for sales intelligence, if they're in market for lead routing, if they're in market for data hygiene, right? Or if for our customer success reps, if we have other things that could show that they possibility for churn, right? And so now when you're layering on these different, topical clusters to your ideal customer accounts, or the list of ideal accounts, now you can zero in on the 50 or the 100 or the 1,000 that you and your team should be actively reaching out to today or this week. And it just makes it more fluid, instead of, as a sales manager, giving a set of target accounts to a sales rep that immediately when you send it to them, half of them are disqualified. Now you're sending fully qualified accounts where they have a much higher chance that day to succeed. So I am a believer in intent, but it's not a silver bullet. You definitely need to layer a much broader data strategy into making it work.
That definitely gives a very well-rounded picture. Thanks a lot for giving your insights and your perspective on intent data. Outbound, account-based marketing very often is followed by some form of a, web asset visit, right? People somehow come back to the pages. I would be curious, right? In your perspective, what's the challenge when it comes to conversion rate optimization that you see typically?
There's a lot of challenges. One could be just bandwidth, right? Like, you got to be able to personalize both the outbound message, the offer, the feel of the offer on when they come back to your site. So, I mean, it's really the personalization of the journey. And so again, if you can use data to reduce the amount of stories that you have to create, or reduce the focus into specific funnels, that's probably the biggest challenge, is not getting as broad of a spectrum of people to that conversion site that may or may not have interest, and instead targeting the ones that have that need or that interest, so that you can put a more personalized set of stories. And then, I don't know, maybe your firm or other softwares can utilize that information to customize what that user can actually see when they visit the site, based on their interest in the categorization. But again, that comes down to, like, you can have the best data in the world if you don't have the people and the processes to customize your journeys for your customers based on those different data attributes. Then you're going to just be sending them to general information. Now, the other thing is, once you get people on your site, right, those people will convert, or they won't convert. And at the end of the day, most companies that are doing, web forms and get a lot of web traffic, they use marketing automation systems to capture that traffic and track that traffic. And most of those systems are person-based systems. They're all person-based systems. They're not account-based systems. So, what you'll find is that if you're targeting account, pushing outbound activity ads and everything, and trying to drive that traffic back to your website, that person visit is not going to automatically connect itself to the account that you're targeting. So what you have is you don't have the ability in most cases, when a net new person when a company comes to your website, to personalize their journey, sometimes even putting their logo on the page that you're promoting, right? And and then the salespeople internally don't get assigned that lead when it gets created into the marketing system, because it doesn't automatically know there's already an account in the system. So I think there's conversion of the person from the web form into the system, and then conversion from in the system to the sales rep in Salesforce or whatever system you're using, because traditionally there's a challenge with marketing automation and CRM, where leads that get created in the person database are not automatically associated to the accounts in the Salesforce system, which doesn't allow those relationships to get handed off to the person who really knows their use case very well.
Super, super interesting. Wow, this is a very deep dive into sort of how conversion rate relates to outbound, how it relates to account-based marketing, actually, all of it coming together. And I guess, that's in the end, the area where you guys are in as well. Since we slowly coming to an end of the interview, right? I would love to ask you one quick question. You mentioned that you've been with RingLead for a while, right? If you would be, joining RingLead today would be your first day. What's the one advice that you would give yourself?
That's a good one. I would say, what I always would tell myself is get up early, work your butt off, outwork everybody else, and build a business that is built for the ages. Right? You're gonna have a lot of competitors come into your way. You're gonna have a lot of great relationships and relationships that go away. And at the end of the day, the people that are driven to create as much value by being awake as often as possible, working hard as possible, learning as much as possible, listening to your customers. That's what creates the most compelling picture over time, and creates the most value for the customers who you're ultimately serving. So I just say work really hard and love what you're doing.
Very cool. John, really appreciate that you took the time with us today to be a guest on Pathmark Presents. I want to give you the very last word. Right? If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about RingLead today, what's the one thing that they should remember?
The cost of dirty data on your demand gen can be as high as 70% of your revenue, and multiple studies to prove that. And so if you or your executive sponsors are not focused on creating a highly quality data environment in a digital age, you're set up for failure.
I would say that's a very strong word for the end. Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents.
Thank you.